who's going to screw up.
Yes. Hare Krishna.
I'm not alone in bumbling.
Yeah.
Please do not lament for them. All living entities are under the control of the Supreme, and they cannot always live together. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada. Kamsa addressed his Kamsa addressed his sister and brother-in-law as Mahabhagu, because although he killed their ordinary children, the goddess Durga took birth from them. Because Devaki bore Durga Devi in her womb, Kamsa praised both Devaki and her husband. Asuras are very devoted to the goddess Durga, Kali, and so forth. Kamsa, therefore, truly astonished, appreciated the exalted position of his sister and brother-in-law. Durga is certainly not under the laws of nature, because she herself is the controller of the laws of nature. Ordinary living beings, however, are controlled by these laws. And remember, Kamsa is an ordinary living being. Am I still on here? Yes, okay. I can see your face, but I can't see how ugly I am. Ordinarily, however, are controlled by these laws. Prakriti kriyamanini gune kamane savasha. Consequently, if you can see how often I practice Sanskrit, consequently, none of us are allowed to live together for any long period. By speaking in this way, Kamsa tried to pacify his sister and brother-in-law. So, what do we got here? There we go. So once again, I'll repeat the last verse. Oh, great souls, your children have suffered their own misfortune. This is a big one. Therefore, please do not lament for them. All living entities are under the control of the Supreme, and they cannot always live together. So this is Kamsa and Kamsa's mind at work. The reason and rationalization that all worldly demoniac mentalities come up with when called to task for their deeds. It is a pathetic condolence offered by a coward who kills children and calls it destiny. So this is what fear brings. We have a lot of fear going through our society right now. Fears of pandemic, fears of war, fears of food shortage, fears of rioting. So we have to ask ourselves, are we going to follow Kamsa's path? And in a way, we all, the reason why we're here is because of the birth within us of ahamkara. I am the doer, not you, Krishna. Let me take control. It should be rather called aham kamsa. Aham kamsa. We come down here and we try to control material nature. And because of that, because intrinsically, inherently, deep down, we know we're not in control. We have that constant anxiety, kunta. We have constant anxiety and fear, birth, death, old age, and disease. So Kamsa is at the last vestige of his material life. He can see it coming. He can hear it coming. And Krishna is coming down on him like a riptide. And deep down, he knows he deserves it. And he can blame Providence all he wants. But he knows he has to reap what he sows. That's why when you pick up a rock or when you catch somebody in the act of doing something wrong, why do they run? Because deep down, they know they're doing something wrong. So Kamsa knows by the way in which he has ruled the kingdom, thinking himself the power of all that be, he's going to lose his throne. Krishna, the eighth son of Devaki, is going to punch the crown right off his head. He's going to grab Kamsa by the hair and he's going to drag him down. I'm sorry to be a spoiler. Spoiler alert. Don't listen if you don't want to know the end of this Leela. He's going to drag Kamsa down off that throne and he's going to jack him right in the face with his beautiful fist that hits like lightning. Kamsa, like almost everybody else in this world, we have these plans to defeat what is going to overcome us, our demise. We have these plans that we will enjoy. We have these plans like Kamsa that we are in control of either our little street corner or our program, or we're the boss. But as to quote a world famous heavyweight fighter who is known for his iron fist, to borrow his words, everyone has a plan until he gets punched in the face. So that's what Durga is. Durga doesn't care. Durga doesn't come with a lotus petal and blessings. Durga comes with 8 weapons, a noose, I believe, tongue hanging out, the blood, the head, the skulls, Kali. Yes. So our aham kamsa, our fears of this material world, losses of jobs, pandemics, conflicts, anyways, this is the end of our throne. This is a game of thrones. Now, the previous lecturers, Ananda Bihari, Chaitanya Charan, who gave the psychological lecture? Who gave the one about the different parts of the brain?
Anush Sharma.
Anush, yeah. And it was very interesting about the amygdala, or the basal part of the brain, the reptile part of the brain, that instinctive, like cruel, non-empathetic, almost psychotic part of the brain that without any buffers or emotions or empathy will cruelly go about its plans, like a snake that eats its own children. This is Kamsa. This is basically our rulers today and in the past. We've all been through it before. I rule my life. The world around me is mine to make or break as I please. And so on the throne of our heart, every one of us a little bit, as we're coming through bhakti and chanting and calling upon Krishna to purify us, he slowly sweeps that away. We have that self-love. I am the doer and I am the enjoyer. But the previous lecturers have given us a full array of the mentality of the demoniac nature, of that demonstrative, that rebellious nature against Krishna, and what happens when we seek aham kara to be the doer, the controller. So I'm not going to get into that. I'm going to go to the other side and say, in this game of thrones, if we are truly not belonging ourselves on this throne, then who does belong on this throne in our heart? So I'm going to tell a little story. It's from the Bhakti Ratnakar, and this is an adaptation, Narahari Chakravarti. So we have to ask ourselves at the beginning of the story, are we going to let fear, or are we going to let love sit on our throne? So we draw back the curtain. The name of this Leela is Umreo, which means emperor. Umreo is a small village just off the center of the great lotus whirl of Sri Vrindavan Dham. Chatravan, which is a forest in that area, Krishna and his friends wandered in a long parade. They were strutting like young lions, dressed in silks and forest flowers, decorated in flower garlands, smeared with sandalwood pulp, all shiny, and excellent garments of many different colors. It was a wonderful parade of the young Sakas. Balaram, of great strength by Krishna's side, swinging their shoulders. Sudam, Sridam, Madhu Mangala of great belly. Subal, Bahu, Bhadra, Subhadra, Manibhadra, Bhoja, Toka, Krishna, innumerable cowherd boys frolicking in the forest. They paraded and laughed and sung songs about Krishna and Krishna's Leela and pastimes. Then all of a sudden, Madhumangala ran out in front and stopped everyone. He went over to Krishna, took his hand and led him over to a banyan log and sat him down and held his shoulder to stay still and lifted Krishna's chin and put Krishna's hand up on his, holding his calf goad like a scepter. And Madhumangala broke the silence and declared, I hereby decree that Krishna is the sovereign king and absolute ruler over this realm. The kingdom is his, and he alone has power here. And all the Sakas said, Haribo, how wonderful is Krishna. Declare it boldly to one and all. Sri Balaram sat on Krishna's left side and began executing the duties of minister of state, and Sridham held an umbrella of kandamba leaves over Krishna's head. Arjuna fanned him with a chamra. Madhumangala sat in front of Krishna and acted like a court jester, and Subala offered him betel nuts, and Subahum, Vishala, and some other sakas, which were numerous around, took the roles of subjects, and they all proclaimed, Krishna, Kana, king of the forest, king of Raj, ruler of the realm, what have you to declare? And Krishna says, if anyone without my permission so much as picks one flower in all this realm, without my sanction, bind them and bring them before me, for they shall be punished. And of course, we all know who the flower pickers are. And then behind him, the king of peacocks, Tandavika, Krishna's peacock, strutted up behind him like only a peacock can do. Behind Krishna, behind his banyan log, and spread his wonderful trail of feathers with thousands of eyes, iridescent and shining, perfectly in contrast with Krishna's pitamba, the golden dress that he wore with his turban and his peacock feather in it and pearls hanging down, and Krishna's stormy, dusky presence. And Krishna smiles with a glint and his eyes sparkling like stars in a midnight sky. He spread and it looked like the back of the throne. So Krishna stood there and he says, indeed, I am the king of Raj. Go out and declare it boldly. And so his friends went out. All the sakas spread far and wide, headed by Madhu Mangala. They went to the forest and boldly declaring Krishna the king of all. They said, obey one and all. Obey. Krishna, the son of Nanda Maharaj, is the king, and no one but he is in power here. If anyone comes here to even pick flowers, and we all know who picks the flowers, we will take that person before the king to be punished. And so they told it to all the trees and the creepers and the animals. Each honeybee in their flower buzzed it to the other honeybee in their flower. Krishna's king, Krishna's ruler. How wonderful is Krishna? And they whispered it under the rocks, how wonderful. And the charkara birds and told it to the swans, and the swans told it to the parrots. And there was such a commotion in the canopy of the woods of the forest behind the vines. You could hear it from the villages. You could hear there was a commotion. It was almost as if the whole universe was to know it. Krishna, king of Raj, Umreo. How wonderful is Krishna? And Tandavaka, his pet peacock, let out a great cry. And Daksha and Vikashana, Krishna's pet parrots, flew off to make sure everyone knew it. Krishna, king of Raj. No one but he is in power here. So over the hills and dales of Rajadam, all the birds in their bird language chirruping to each other in the canopy of the banyan trees, the Arjuna trees, the mango trees, the tamarind, the bakula, from tree to tree, and the honey-scented kadamba carried the scent of the knowledge of Krishna being the king of Raj, our heart. But then Shuksmati and Suba, these were Radha's parrots. They heard this through the trees in the bird language. And they looked at each other and tilted their heads, that only a way in which parrots can tilt their heads. And they flew off and they alighted on a tree and climbed out onto a branch over Lalita. And they started repeating, as only parrots can do, verbatim, Krishna is the king of Raj. No one has power here. And Suba said, yes, all power is his. Punish the flower pickers. Punish the flower pickers. Oh, and Lita heard this. Lalita sat there. She's looking up and her heart palpitated and she grew as red as the evening sun. And she went and told Vishaka Devi. And Vishaka Devi clenched her golden fists and she told Champakalata, who shook until you could hear the bangles on her wrists shaking and ringing like the bells of Arti. And Chitra Devi and Tunga Vidya stopped playing their instruments. And Undaleka stopped stirring her pot. And Ranga Devi and Su Devi, who looked at each other in belief, like looking into a mirror in disbelief. And they were all so angry and gathered together in a huddle and said, who wants to have any power in Sri Radhika's kingdom? And so they immediately went and found Radha and told her, someone is claiming to be king of Raj, to have all power over the force and all the plants and animals to be his subjects. And Radha, she secretly smiled to herself, but then she feigned anger. And she says, what are we to do? And so they all said, you stay here, Radharani, Radhika. And they went and gathered flowers and they began quickly weaving a wonderful royal garment made of flowers, thin vines, lotuses and champakalata flowers, and tulsi, and just a beautiful with a robe, and it was just beautiful. I don't know women's dresses, and then a crown of tulsi flowers, and then Vrinda Devi herself joined in, and she began right from the ground, vines growing up and twisting upon themselves, and scaffolding and blooming a living throne for Sri Radhika, Rava, the queen of Raj, and made a wonderful throne. And there they sat Radha, bedecked with jewels and white champaka flowers, with Tulsi Maharani's fragrance all around. And they sung, Tadit Savana Champaka, Pradipta Gora Vigrahe, Mukha Prabha Prashasti Koti Saradendu Mantale, Vachitra Chitra Sanchara, Chakora Shavalochane, Kara Kariya Shihamam, Kripa Kataksha Bhajanam. Oh, Srimati Radharani, your form is as splendid and as effulgent as yellow champaka flowers, gold and lightning. The luster of your face has eclipsed millions of moons, autumn moons, And your eyes are as amazingly beautiful and as quickly moving back and forth as chikora birds. And there and thus they established Sri Radhika's kingdom by seating her on this suitable, living, blooming, scented throne, and they faithfully surrounded her. Chitrasakhi held an umbrella over Radhika's head. Vishaka fanned her with the chamra. Lalita sat on Radhika's left as her minister of state, and one Sakhi offered her betel nuts, and the remaining Sakhis acted as her subjects. And sitting on her throne, Sri Radhika ordered the Sakhis, go and defeat the person who desires to usurp my kingdom. Bind him and bring him before me. Defeat anyone who wants to control my kingdom and bring him here. So receiving the order of their Rava, empress, thousands and thousands of Sakhis, Vrinda made them all flower sticks with mystic powers. And she also gave Sri Radhika a flower scepter. And so all the Sakhis bound up their saris, girded them up like warriors, and each held a flower staff as a mystic weapon, and they set out for battle. It was like a kaleidoscope of color. Have you ever looked at a kaleidoscope? You look in, you go like this, and it's all this moving color. That's with all the Sakhis together on top of that mountain, across a hill and a dale from where Krishna stood, not knowing anything. And the Sakhis broke forth, and they went down to thousands and thousands. And in the distance, Arjuna, Lavanga, Vringa, Kokila, Subala, and Madhu Mangala saw them coming. And they looked at each other. They couldn't believe it. It was a Sakhi tsunami. Just a wave of Sakhis coming down. And they looked at each other, and you know what they said? They said, hey, ho, let's go. And they got out of there, and they all ran away. Even Balaram ran from what was coming. It's some of the little ones, some of the little of Krishna's followers. I don't know what they're called. They're like the Manjari form of a Saka. They ran all the way home to their villages and went in behind their mother's legs. But Madhu Mangala, he of great belly. Okay, can you see my belly here, Madhu Mangala? He was running away. It was like watching Adi Purush running. Gotcha. Madhu Mangala, he's running, but he was running like a topsy-turvy top. And a Sakhi caught him and instantly threw a mala around his wrist, zoop, and mystically bound him and dragged him back before their Empress Radha. Seeing Madhu Mangala there with his head down, Empress Radhika said, so, which king's order carrier are you? And Madhu Mangala said, I am a cowboy. I will not tell on another cowboy. And Sri Radhika grew angry, and Lalita grew angry, and they all looked at him, and they pinched his cheeks. And Sri Radhika said, I will punish you and all your companions so that you will never be so bold again. Hearing this, Madhu Mangala lowered his head and said, so it is justified. I say you punish me in such a way that my belly becomes full. And all the Sakhis laughed. And Sri Radhika said, oh, let this Brahmana, who's only interested in his belly, let him go back to his so-called Lord. Let him warn him what he is up against if he seeks to control the forests of Vraj. So the Sakhis let Madhu Mangala go, but they didn't didn't release him. So he's running back over hill and dale. Boop, 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 boop. And he finally makes it back to Krishna. There's no Sakhas around. Krishna's still standing there with his chin in the air, looking around like a king, looking from a palace balcony. And he sees Madhu Mangala break through the thorns, And he says, what has happened to you? And Madhu Mangala morosely replied, you see, this is the result of me trying to maintain your kingdom. You don't understand, Krishna. There is someone else, an empress, and her power is unlimited. How can you think to ever usurp her empire? Cupid himself, who destroys the patience of everyone in this world, himself shivers when she raises one of the bows of her eyebrows. So heed my words, Kana. You must take shelter of her. You must surrender to her. You must offer your very body to her. And Krishna lowered his scepter and he looked at the ground, and Tandavika slowly closed his feathers behind him and walked away. And Krishna slapped his leg and said, Acha, you are right, Madhu Mangala. Take me to this empress. And so Madhu grabbed Krishna and dragged him through the forest, over hill, over dale, to where Krishna was, to where Radharani was. Radharani saw Krishna, Madhu Mangala pulling Krishna in the distance, and she was so very happy. She became very impatient. But as there was no limit to her bashfulness, she tried to take off her flower dress, and the Sakis go, no, the dress shall stay and you shall stay upon your throne. But as she stood there and saw Krishna coming with Madhu Mangala, with tears of anticipation, were like drops of honey rolling down glowing pink lotus cheeks. And then Krishna saw Umrava, Sri Radhika, on the throne, the living throne, with Vrinda's scepter in her hand. And he stopped and he grew absolutely enchanted, completely and absolutely still, stock still, like a tamal tree. And he sighed. How wonderful is Radha? How wonderful is Radha? And then he sang a song. Makeshvare, Krayeshvare, Svadeshvare, Sureshvare, Triveda Bharateshvare, Ramana Sashaneshvare, Rameshvare, Shameshvare, Pramoda Kananeshvare, Queen of the Forest, Rajeshvare, Queen of Raj, Rajatipe, Shri Radhika, Namo Stute. And he began to drag, oh, what time is it? 7:48. He began to drag Madhu Mangala. And Madhu Mangala was very happy at heart when he saw Krishna's condition. And they both came before Radhika. And Krishna bowed. And then when he got up, Madhu Mangala took his hand. And Vrinda Devi instantly scaffolded and grew another living throne to the right of Sri Radhika and placed Krishna on the throne. And they were like twin stars in the night. And Madhu Mangala told Sri Radhika, Umrava, now take this Krishna as your husband and rule over your empire. The prize you will get is jewel-like embrace. Accept that prize carefully. For now, you, Bhakti Roop, you have sovereignty over Krishna's body. over Krishna's mind, over his very heart. Hearing Madhumangala's words, Lalita blissfully laughed. And she took one of the flower staffs and poked him in the belly. And she said, Madhumangala, they should have named you Ladu Mangala. And with that, she handed him a tray full of hundreds of gold-leafed ladus. And seeing that, Madhumangala just gazed at the beauty of Radha and Krishna among the thrones, and the Sakis gathered round and did puja for Radhika and for Krishna. And then Vishaka came over to Madhumangala and elbowed him and said, Vamoose, for the emperor and the empress were about to joyfully enter into a grove cottage and enjoy pastimes together as prince and princess, king and queen, the only two who are allowed on our hearts. And the Sakis soothed them in many different expert ways. And so here we have a glimpse into that pure transcendental realm to which we are all hankering. Prabhupada said, we all have a stock of love, but we waste it in this material world, whether it be self-love or extended outward. Ultimately, that stock of love, that dormant love that we have in our heart is for Krishna and Radha, who sit upon the throne of our hearts. King Krishna, who is subservient to Radha. Radha, Bhakti Roop, love personified, and the beloved. Rama, Hari, Hare is Radha. Krishna, Kana, king of the forest. Rama, the pleasure they enjoy together. When we chant the holy name, we are like Madhumangala. We are bringing Radha and Krishna together in the holy name. We've been told so many times by so many sages and so many acharyas and so many pure devotees how the name is non-different. That means Radha's name as well. And so when we chant, when we rise early in the morning, we chant that is just like Umrayo. We are bringing Krishna and Radha together in our hearts to take control. I remember somebody had given a lecture, and one of the most beautiful lines I'd ever heard. He said that Krishna consciousness is love disguised as a philosophy. And so here we have it. Here we have it. That we now, not in the future, but we now have a chance to participate in this Leela. Every time we take the beads in our hands, we can chant Hare Krishna. That's Hare, Radhe, Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Oh, it's all about Krishna. Hare, Hare. No, it's all about Radhe. Hare Rama. No, it's all about both of them and the supreme pleasure. Hare Rama, indeed. Rama, Rama, pleasure, pleasure, joy forever. Hare, Hare, because of Radhe. So this is who we allow on our throne. We should have no anxiety, no fear of this ephemeral, infinitesimal world and all the fears that it has to offer. We shall not be like Kamsa. We shall allow Krishna to walk in, strutting like a lion with Balaram, the spiritual master, Nityananda, the all-compassionate, into our hearts like the lanes of Mathura, to come and take Kamsa out of our heart, our fear of material nature. And then Krishna will take the last vestige of our pride away, and we will be able to enjoy Krishna and Radharani's presence in Leela in our lifetimes forever. So I end here. I hope there's some time left. Thank you very much for listening. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna.
Bhima Prabhu, what are you doing? What are you doing, Bhima Prabhu? Thank
What
you.
am I doing?
What a wonderful class. Krishna consciousness is a philosophy, love disguised as a philosophy, and Bhima Prabhu is a gopi disguised as a bearded man. Thank you very much. Okay, we have a question in the chat from Susan. She's asking where you were reading from and where you took your acting classes. Not acting, but
Yes, it's pure acting. None of it's true. Pretension all the way. Actually, I read several different versions of the Bhakti Raknika. And yes, I did. I had to close my eyes. A lot of the translations are very sparse. They tell you what happened, but they don't give you a vision. They just tell you Krishna went here, Madhu Mangala was in the middle, and Radha said this. But I assume, taking from many other pastimes, that's the way it rolled. I followed the plot in the structure, and just remembered all of other Krishna's pastimes along with it, and how those two battle it out for supremacy all the time, and how the Sakas are on one side of the war. Remember how in kids you used to play Red Rover, something to come over? I don't know if anybody ever played that. Everybody plays games like this, but we used to play these field games, and there would be the girls against the boys. So I imagine that that's how it is with Krishna and Radha, as it is. I don't imagine that's the way it is. Yeah, so it's Bhakti Raknika, and it's Umrao. The story is called Umrao, Umrao.
wow, that was a mic drop, Bhima Prabhu. I don't know what to say. It's better than a movie. It's better than anything.
Damn straight.
Andrea, followed by Adipurusha Prabhu, please contribute.
Hare Krishna, dear Bhima Prabhu. I just wanted to give my appreciation. I could see it. The way you described it, I could see it. And it was just like Rameshwara Prabhu wrote in the chat, like, thank you for taking us to Vrindavan Dham. Like when you described the peacock, I was like, oh, I could see the peacock. And when you described the bees talking to each other and everything, I'm going to heartily recommend for everyone to listen to this class so that they can have this pastime as well. It was so sweet. So thank you so much for doing this and for reminding us that we can choose to either have fear or love sit on the throne of our heart, and we can choose that. So how wonderful is Radha and how wonderful is Krishna?
Yes, how wonderful is Radha. Yes. Hold on one second. Let me show you what Krishna looked like sitting on that banyan, sitting down with the peacock, his peacock, Tandavika, behind him.
Is he gonna bring a peacock?
Yeah. This is what Krishna looked like. Can you see it? Is it blurred? Blurred. Hold on.
It's a little blurred, but I know that painting. Yes, yes.
Oh, I can't. I wanted everybody to see it. Background. There we go.
We thought you were gonna bring a live peacock. All right.
Yeah.
Next time.
Oh, my dogs would chase the peacocks. Yes, there's Krishna, and there's Tandavika behind. See the nice, beautiful. That's where I got that description from. I did not take anything from my own head. Am I still here, by the way? I started messing. with things.
You're in Vrindavan. You're not here.
Yeah. So yeah. Hare Krishna.
Okay, Adipurusha Prabhu.
Wonderful class. Srila Prabhupada tells us very simply that the Lordship Shri Radha Muralidhar sit on an effulgent golden throne in the Temple of Jewels in Vrindavan, surrounded by their intimate associates. And in the Hasidic tradition, there's a lot of, I can't think of the word for it. There's stories in the Bible that are just 2-3 lines long, but then there's a tradition of expanding those stories, of giving details and embellishing, like dressing the deity. So you did that. You took the basic thing that Prabhupada gave us and presented it in a glory.
Okay, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. How wonderful is Krishna Ki Jai. How wonderful is
wonderful.
Radharani Ki Jai. How wonderful is Bhima Prabhu. Hare Krishna. And Bhima Prabhu, your spiritual master is empowering you big time. You even sound like Radhanath Maharaj. My wife
Yeah.
just told me, is that Radhanath Maharaj? Is that Maharaj? Bhima Prabhu, okay.
Oh, for the day, for the lifetime.
Yeah.
Can't wait for that lifetime. As my son says, you've got 1,000 lifetimes to live.
Okay, thank you
Hare
very much
Krishna, everyone.
for joining. Rameshwar Naik, Andrea, William, Gitanjali, Susan, Yogeshwari, Jason, Arjuna Prabhu, Vinisha, Angel, Amish, Kartik, Anand Singh, Henry, Isabel, Spirit Soul, Suzanne, everybody. Love you all. Haribol. Have a wonderful day. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.